In this video, we are going to replace our dummy data and create an actual backend in Django and Django Rest Framework. And then we are going to display the data that we created in our React Native application. So without further ado, let's get started. So for our React Native application, I started a brand new Django project and I didn't do with it anything just yet. So it's currently located on my desktop next to the events application, which is a React Native application. And right now I have two terminals open. So one is with the events application with the simulator, and the other one is for our backend. So what I'm going to do first is to run the migrations. Create the tables, Python manage py migrate. Next, I'm going to create an events application. Then I'm going to create a super user so we can log into the Django administration. And finally, I'm going to install Django Rest Framework and pillow, because we will be using an image field to store the path to the images for our QR codes. So let's install those dependencies. And now let's return to Visual Studio Code. We have our events application over here. So what we need to do is to go to settings py file and include it in the installed apps list. But before, we are going to place REST framework. Okay, and below we are going to place events. Then we are going to scroll all the way down, and below the static URL, we are going to add a media URL. So we will need the media configuration for our QR codes. So let's also add a media root. And here let's add base dir, and then media. So now we can actually create the media directory in our main project directory. All right, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to head over to the events application. In the models py file, we are going to create a new class called event, and this is going to inherit from models.model. And the first field that we are going to define is the name, and this is going to be the models char field with the max length of 200. Then we will have the description of the event. So it can be a models text field, for example. Next, we will have the QR code. So this is going to be a models image field. And here what we are going to do is to specify that it's optional. So we will override the save method in just a few seconds, and then we are actually going to generate a QR code, which is going to be stored in our media directory, but the path will be stored in this image field. And we need to now specify that we want to upload this image to, for example, QR codes like this. So the QR code generated will be stored in the media directory, and with this QR code field that we are defining over here, we are going to store the path to this QR code. And then we will also have a date, and this is going to be a date field. Let's add a string representation method. And here let's just simply return str self name. Then let's override the save method. Here we are going to generate the QR code. So first of all, let's just place in this method, and in a second we are going to take care of QR code generation. Let's begin from the imports. So we forgot to actually install one dependency. I'm going to go back to the terminal and run pip install QR code. All right, and now we can import QR code, perfect. Then from IO, we want to import bytes IO, and from Django core files base, we want to bring in content file, and also from pill, we want to import image. All right, so now what we need to do is to check if the QR code hasn't been created. So if this field is empty, we want to generate a QR code. We want to create a QR code based off the name and then store the path to this QR code in the QR code field and the QR code image in the media files in the QR codes folder. So first of all, if not self QR code, and then we are going to create a QR code image from the name. So QR code EMG is equal to QR code make, and here let's pass in self name. All right. Then we are going to create a white canvas with the size of the QR code image. So canvas is equal to, and here we will have image, new, and then we will pass in RGB, red, green, blue. I'm not going to explain everything from scratch because I made few tutorials on QR code generation in my previous videos. So I'm just going to speed things up a little bit. And I'm just going to focus on briefly explaining what is happening over here, okay? So now that we have the canvas created, we can paste the QR code into this particular canvas. So in order to do this, we just simply need to run canvas paste and then pass in this QR code image. Okay, so as the next step, let's create a file name for the image. So I'm going to create a variable fname, and with the use of fstring, I'm going to set the constant first. The constant is going to be QR code, and then I'm just going to put in self name, and at the end we will have the PNG format. Then we will create a byte.io buffer to store the image. So we will have buffer is equal to bytes.io. Okay, and next we will save the canvas as a PNG image to that buffer. So canvas, save, and we are going to place in the buffer and place in PNG as format. And now we can save the image to a file using the name. So self QR code, save, we are going to pass in the file name. We are going to use content file for this operation, and to the content file we are going to pass in buffer get value, and we are going to set save is equal to false. So we are not going to save the QR code in this line because we are going to save it over here. So basically, this is it. Hope it will work. We will find out shortly. I'm going to save the models py file, and I'm going to jump into the admin py file of the events application. I'm going to import the event from .models, and I'm going to register it. So admin site register, and we are going to pass in the event. All right, let's save this. Let's go back to the terminal. Python manage py make migrations. Okay, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. Let's log into the Django administration. And let's try to create an event. Test event, test description, and let's say that the date is going to be today, and then I'm going to save and continue editing. Okay, so we get page not found, and if we go to the media directory, we have this QR code generated. So the generation of a QR code is working. Storing the path is working as well. So we have this QR code image over here. But if we click on the path, we don't see the image. And what we need to do is to simply add the media files to the URL patterns. We forgot about this very basic step. So from Django conf, we want to import settings. And then from Django conf URL static, we want to import static. Okay. And then we are just going to add the media files to the URL patterns. Media URL. Okay, and then document root is equal to settings media root. All right, I'm going to save this and hit refresh, and there it is. All right, now everything is working. As the next step, let's go back to our backend project, and in the events directory, let's create an API folder, and here let's create 3 files. Serializers py, we'll also need a views py file, and the URLs py. So first of all, let's serialize our data. So we will need some imports from REST framework. We want to import serializers, and then from .models, we want to bring in the event model, and then we can create a new class, which is going to be called event, maybe model serializer, which will inherit from serializer.model serializer. And here with the use of class meta, we are going to indicate that we are dealing with an event model. And then what fields do we want to include? Let's add an ID, name, description, and QR code. And also let's add a date. All right, so we have our serializer created. Now we can move on and take care of the views. So here we also need to grab something from REST framework. And to be more precise, we want to import view sets. And then we will also grab in our model. So from .models, we want to import the event model. And also from serializers, we want to import our event model serializer. So now we can create a new class called event view set, which inherits from, or let's call it events view set. And this inherits from view sets dot model view set. All right. Here we need to specify the query set. We want to include all the events, so it will be event objects all. And then the serializer class is going to be event model serializer. All right, so as the final step, we need to take care of the URLs py file. So this isn't the final step, but the final step of creating those 3 files. So from REST framework, here we want to import routers. Then what we want to do is to bring our view. So from .views, we want to import events view set. And from Django URLs, we want to import path and include. Okay, so now we are going to set the router as routers default router, and then we are going to register this events view set, so router register, and let's just keep it as events. So the path is going to be API and then events, like this. we will add API to our main URLs in a few seconds. So now it's going to be events over here, and we need to pass in our event view set. Okay, and finally, we need to create the URL patterns. This is going to be the main path for our API path. So it's going to be, as mentioned before, API events. Okay. So here, what we need to do is to simply include the router URLs. Okay. And then these URL patterns need to be included in the main URLs py file. So let's import also include. All right, and then path API, and then what we want to do is to include, and we want to include events API URLs. So events API URLs. All right, let's save this and let's see if this will work. So I'm going to go to API events, and we have page not found, and I made a very silly mistake. I forgot about the dash. Let's try it one more time, and there it is. Okay, so we have API, and then we can move from here to events, and this is our events list. So if we go back to the Django administration, we can create a new event, test event 2, hello world. Let's save and continue editing. We have another QR code. And if you wish, you can add more events. I think 2 will be enough, at least for now. So now we have 2 events. And now what we need to do is to take the data from over here and include it in our React Native project. So in order to do that, let's go to our events app, to the home screen. And over here, let's begin coding from importing the useEffect hook. And here we will simply fetch the data. So we need to create a function, fetch data. And this is going to be an async function. So we are going to fetch the data with the fetch method, which returns a promise, and we are going to handle this promise with the async await syntax. First of all, let's create a variable response is equal to await, and then we are going to use fetch, and I'm just going to grab this URL, paste it below as a string, and then let's add a variable data, and this is going to be await response.json. All right, and let's simply set our data, but first we need to import useState hook. So I'm going to try to do an auto import again, useState, there it is. Initially it's going to be an empty array. So here let's add const data set data, and we are going to simply set the data as data, and then to the event list we are going to pass in data as data, and we of course need to fetch the data inside of the useEffect. So let's save this, and then we need to go to the event list. So in our component directory, in the events folder, we have this event list. Now, instead of using dummy data, we are going to use actual events data. Okay, so we are going to receive data as prop. Let's destructurize it over here, and let's pass it over here. So now we are going to put this data, so ID as item ID, title as item title, and here I think we have a mistake. So it's going to be item name. Let's change this over here as well. So we will have item ID, name item name, description item description, And let's also put in QR code. It's going to be item QR code like this, okay? So we have, I'm going to make this bigger. We have name, description, QR code, and date. Okay, so I'm going to skip the date for now. Just focus on the name, description, and the QR code. And we are passing the data now to the event item. So let's take a look at the event item. We don't have the title now. We have the name. Okay. And we also have the QR code. But let's just leave it as it is. We are going to place the QR code image in just a second. But let's see if this is actually working. So I'm going to go to the simulator and we have null is not an object. Okay. Let's go to the home screen. And okay, we have some weird auto import. I'm going to try it like this. Delete this weird auto import. Let's save this. And I'm going to reload it. And there it is. Okay, so this is now working. Good. So the final thing is to actually add the QR code, and we will add it for this particular part just below the description. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code, to our React Native application. Let's go to the event item, and this time I'm going to import image manually. And below the text description, I'm going to add image. And this is going to be a self-closing component. Here, what we are going to set is the style. Let's put in width 100 and the height, let's also put it as 100. Doesn't really matter for this example. And then we are going to specify the source, URI, and here we are going to place in the QR code. All right, let's save this. And here is our QR code. So obviously this isn't looking very, very nice right now, but the most important thing is that it's actually working, and we will continue to build this project in the upcoming videos. If you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel, and hope to see you soon. Take care and bye-bye.